Hello, welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Dr. Darren Hood. Thank you for taking the time to join us on today. Welcome to everybody. Those of you who listen on a regular basis, those listening for the first time, welcome, and welcome to the World of UX show. On this podcast, for those of you who might be new, we spend time talking about everything related to user experience. We don't just talk about how to do the work. We talk about trends. We talk about current events. We talk about what's going on in the discipline. We talk about different pivots. We talk about challenges. This is part of what makes this show different. We talk about challenges. We talk about pitfalls. We talk about things that people encounter that a lot of people don't like to talk about because they feel like it's a downer or things of that nature. But I fully believe in the importance of informing people about everything so that you're not blindsided, so that you are empowered, so you are in a position to be able to make the right moves at the right times. So again, welcome to the show. And we are currently in a series entitled UX Maturity, well, the harsh realities, I should say, of UX maturity. And we're talking about all things UX maturity, and I know a lot of people who are listening, you may have learned a little bit about UX maturity, and usually when people learn about UX maturity, they learn about it from the perspective of how well it is received, the discipline is received in your company, how much support you get when it comes to doing the work. It's usually only focused on an organization. It's usually only focused on an institution. But what we have been proving and sharing and showing throughout the course of this series is all of these other aspects of UX maturity that go under the radar. And speaking of that, tonight's subtopic is UX maturity and under the radar conflicts of interest. We are going to talk about other elements, things that usually get completely missed as it pertains to UX maturity, in that we need to understand other elements that are affected by UX maturity, other elements that impact UX maturity, things that we need to be aware of because, folks, we all impact and influence UX maturity one way or another. And I'm going to talk about several aspects of UX maturity, 5 in particular tonight, that are quite common, especially today, the way things are happening today, where we're overwhelmed with misinformation, where we have a lot of UX departments are run by people who actually lack UX maturity, and then that detrimentally impacts things. We have a lot of people who are doing things that they feel, and a lot of times it's innocent. They have no idea that they're doing it. They feel that it's okay, but it actually sets us back. I want to put these things on everybody's radar. We want to take these things from being under the radar to being things that we are aware of. And then each person has to make themselves a committee of one to make sure that these things are not active, that they're not problematic in your own life, in your own journey when it comes to being a user experience practitioner. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think this is going to be short and sweet today. Let's see if that happens. A lot of times I try to be short and sweet, and it doesn't work out that way. But folks, the number one under the radar conflict of interest that we want to present to you today has to do with growing self at the expense of the discipline. Growing self at the expense of the discipline. Now, everybody in UX, no matter who you are, we all want to advance. We all want to get better. There's never really a point of arrival. I know some people talk about how you can arrive when it comes to UX, and not really. And even if you feel like you've arrived somewhere, there's always something else to accomplish. But truth be told, you don't arrive just from the perspective that you're going to always continue growing. But what do I mean by growing self at the expense of the discipline? Basically, this has to do with a person advancing, but the discipline at large suffers a setback. Now, a lot of people don't even know whether or not what they're done has impacted the discipline and how it's impacted the discipline. But think about it for a minute. That's what it is. Again, when you advance, when a person advances, but the discipline at large suffers a setback. One example of this, and I'll have one or more examples of each one of the 5 elements that I'm going to present in this episode: premature promotions. Now, I'm going to say this up front. I don't want people to feel bad, because I know people who have received promotions in their work, promotions at their job. And a lot of times people get promoted because they just happen to be in the right place at the right time. I know people who have director and manager roles, and they only have a year or 2 and sometimes 3 years of work in UX. They just happen to be in a position where the company wanted to advance them. I know people who have been advanced because the company didn't want to lose them. I know that there are circumstances. We're going to count all of those as outliers. I'm talking about general progression in the discipline with what I'm saying today. So I don't want anybody to feel bad because you're one of those people that got one of those circumstantial promotions. We're not talking about circumstantial promotions. We're talking about people who, from a standpoint of when it comes to ambition, is what I'm referring to, where people are moving from senior to lead. They're working, or they're moving from lead to principal because they are trying to do that. They move from being an entry-level person to a manager position, a managerial role, because that's what they're trying to do. So we're talking about the aspirations today when we're talking about this type of thing. And when a person gets a promotion and they get it too fast, no matter how you shake it, no matter how you paint it, no matter how you frame it today, if it is premature, there is going to be detrimental impact. And I have to say this too, even in some situations, at least some situations where people get into those circumstantial promotions, there in many cases is still detrimental impact. So I'm not going to take those people off the hook. I just want you to know that I'm not addressing you. But at the same time, there are still some problems that come out of that. And we'll talk about some of the fallout that comes from these a little bit later when I talk about posers, retrofits, and upstarts. An upstart is a person who advances too fast. So there is no getting away from that. But the people who have that detrimental ambition, which we're also going to talk about here in this episode, there's no way, folks, to get around the consequences. And the discipline is impacted by everything that everybody does. And when people grow too fast, there's things that come out of that that do not work in everyone's best interest. Your pocketbook, your checking account has benefited. Your home, your family has benefited. But if you benefit, but the discipline doesn't, then there's a problem. And we have to be ready to deal with that. We have to understand the fallout that's going to come from that. Now I'll get through these and I'll share the different fallout, the consequences later on. Under the radar conflict of interest number 2, self-promotion. Now, by definition, what do I mean by self-promotion? This is when a person hypes themselves. This is when a person is trying to present themselves as being this big type of a status symbol, if you will, in the discipline. Self-promotion. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And there's going to be overlap, for the record, between this one and number 3. But an example, you're constantly selling yourself when you're actually beyond your years. A person that's trying to sell themselves as being one thing when they're really something else. And you got a little bit of upstart associated with this, but when a person is selling themselves as a senior when they're really entry level, when a person is selling themselves as being lead when they're really entry level, when a person is selling themselves as being principal when they're really mid-level or they are, again, entry level, we have to make sure that we represent ourselves for who we truly are. And it's interesting that I have come across a lot of people in the discipline today, no matter what position they're in, they will tell you behind closed doors that they feel like they're an imposter. We're not going to get into the imposter syndrome part of this today. We have one whole episode that'll be dedicated to that. But If you feel like you're an imposter, look at your title. What does your title say you are? How are you representing yourself to the masses? And if you are presenting yourself to the masses as being one thing, usually something that's very high profile, but you yourself don't feel like that, you have no confidence, you know you don't have the skill, but you're out there trying to, you know that you're one thing, but you're trying to promote yourself as being something that's well beyond what you really are. That's an act of self-promotion, and it is counterproductive for us today. I remember a UX event where someone was promoting it on social media, and they were talking about how they were going to have all of these different thought leaders. They used that phrase. They talked about these thought leaders. We're going to have these UX leaders. I remember them saying that. And there was, if I remember correctly, 3 speakers. All of them were listed as being seniors. All of them were promoting the event as if they were really someone who had a lot to say. But when I went to look, as I do, I went to look at the profiles of each of these individuals, and none of them had more than 2 years in the discipline, but yet they were promoting this event and promoting themselves as if they had a lot more to offer than they really did. Folks, self-promotion is not good. And again, we will get into the consequences in a bit. Under the radar conflict of interest number 3, and it's very closely related to that of self-promotion, and that's what we refer to as UX celebritism. Now, what is UX celebritism, and where is this thin line between that and self-promotion? How are we defining this? UX celebritism is when a person achieves the equivalent of star status in UX circles, and they're seeking it, but they really haven't accomplished anything. And there are a lot of people who do that today, who present themselves as one thing when they're really something completely different, but yet they want to be thought of. If you talk to them, they'll tell you they want to be thought of as a celebrity in UX circles. And again, akin to number 2, they present themselves as thought leaders. They present themselves as somebody that you don't want to miss out on. They will sell different sessions, $75, $100, because you got to hear from me. I have a lot to offer you. I am the end all be all. You must listen to me. The way that people hype themselves up, and again, akin to the self-promotion standpoint, but the difference is some people promote themselves, but they're not really trying to achieve celebrity status. When it comes to UX celebritism, people are promoting themselves, and some of them will tell you they're putting themselves out there in a way that a celebrity would, and does not benefit the discipline at all. As a matter of fact, it detrimentally impacts discipline-wide UX maturity. That's number 3. Under the radar conflict of interest number 4, and this is a big one. And there are people all over the landscape of UX that are guilty of this one. And please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm just telling you what's going on. I'm telling you something that needs to be fixed so that we can be better for it. And anybody who's guilty of any of these things can just stop doing it. How about that? How about they just stop doing it? But this is a big one. It is huge. There are countless numbers of people guilty of this one. When people share the hows, they talk about how to do the work while ignoring the pitfalls. They're presenting the discipline as if everything is rosy and everything is great and you don't have to worry about anything. They're emphasizing how to do the work while avoiding any uncomfortable topics at all. Again, by definition, when people are emphasizing how to do UX work, but when it comes to the different pitfalls, the different challenges, the different obstacles that we have to deal with in the discipline, they act like those things don't exist. They will not talk about it. And some of them, they don't want to be grouped with anyone who's doing that because they know how it makes some people feel and they don't want to make anybody feel bad. Well, I've got news for you. When anybody encounters the pitfalls, when they encounter the challenges, when they encounter the political battles, are they going to feel bad then? The answer is yes. Now, will a person feel better if they're aware of these things and then are better equipped to, at least, if nothing else, understood that it is a reality that you can come face to face with these things and have been aware of it or be blindsided by it. Which person is in a better position? So by example, if a person is teaching somebody how to do UX research, but then neglecting to tell them, those same people, about some of the political battles that await UX researchers, you're hiding it from them, that is a disservice. When folks do that, we've got to let people know about the challenges and then talk to them about how to navigate those challenges. We're doing people a favor when we make people aware and then give them some of the ways that they can manage such things. We're putting them in a better position. We're helping them to succeed in light of that uncomfortable situation, in light of that thing that's going to make them concerned, that's going to make them uncomfortable. We do better to let them know and give them some strategic ways to approach what's going on. Under the radar conflict of interest, number 5, choosing competition over support. This is something that happens a lot on UX teams. It has happened to me. I know a lot of other people that it happens to. It happens to a lot of people every day. People listening to this episode, it may have happened to you today. And if it hasn't, it may happen to you tomorrow. It may happen to you the next day. What does this mean? What am I referring to when I say this? When you see peers, people on your team, as the competition and choosing to upstage or challenge them instead of supporting them when somebody else is doing work, you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to be the person where you're putting lights on you instead of them. When I talked about in a recent blog post, I talked about UX maturity and what I call Highlander syndrome, where people, they want to be the only one that's a star. You can't be that person. Folks, it actually detrimentally impacts who we are, who people perceive that we are. This puts us at a disadvantage today. We don't want to operate this way. By example, there are situations I have witnessed where people deliberately try to outshine someone. They can't deal with the fact that a team member has done something that people really appreciate. And they feel like all of a sudden, like it diminishes who they are. That doesn't diminish you. There's people on your team. Everybody on our team has something to contribute. We should be happy that we have people on our team that have something to contribute. I love sports analogies. I know sometimes people say you don't want to use sports analogies and metaphors because some people don't understand that. Well, you know what? It benefits us too much. They are too utilitarian to overlook. If you have a baseball team, a soccer team, and somebody scores, somebody gets a hit, and that person was not you, it vaults the team forward. It helps the team to win. Somebody else could go, in a baseball analogy, somebody could bat 4 times and get 3 hits in those 4 at-bats. They benefited the team 3 times. That's good for the team. You could have gone 0 for 4 in the same game. But if the team benefits, isn't that good for the team? We need to work hard to have more of a teamwork type of a mindset, which means that you may not be the person who's the star on any given day. So we want to make sure to allow other people to shine. Don't try to outshine other people. Don't try to have the last word. Don't work hard to be seen when it's unnecessary, trying to keep yourself relevant and on the radar of leadership. And something else I've seen a lot of times, and it really saddens me over the course of my career when this has happened to me and when I've seen it happen to other people, when you have teams that'll do a design review or design critiques. And I have seen people, they take the design critique as an opportunity to make themselves look better than somebody else. Folks, I've talked about this before in another episode. There are 100 different ways to design something. And if there are 100 different ways to design something, sometimes people use that to their advantage. So when somebody presents their design, then other people will bring up one of those other 99 times, and they use that to make it look like the person did something wrong when that's not the case. Again, there's 100 different ways to design something. And so they use that as an opportunity to attack. That's not good. It's not helpful. You did not make the team advance by putting yourself out there as the person with the answers. Folks, that's not the way to operate. So we need to be careful about these under the radar conflicts of interest. Yes, all of them are conflicts of interest. The 5 things that I mentioned: growing yourself at the expense of the discipline, engaging in self-promotion, trying to achieve UX celebritism, sharing the hows while ignoring the pitfalls associated with UX work, or choosing to compete instead of choosing to support. Each one of these are conflicts of interest. Now, let me share with you 10 different ways that these things detrimentally impact UX maturity. Number 1, it subjects people to the consequences of blind ambition. Yes, people will have ambition. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have an ambition or be ambitious, but if your ambition hurts the team, and yes, it's very easy to hurt the team when you're ambitious, that will cause your UX maturity to be set back, to take a hit. Number 2, it gives perpetrators a false sense of comfort and security. You think you're advancing when in fact the team is suffering. You think that you're comfortable or you feel better about where you are because of the ambition that you had, but it actually causes the team to take a few steps backwards. Not a good place to be. Number 3, it demonstrates a lack of understanding about how the discipline works. We need to understand that ambition, that choosing competition over support, that sharing hows and not helping people to understand the pitfalls that they're going to encounter when they're doing the work. The people who are more mature, they should understand these things and understand not to do them because of what it's going to do to the perception of the team as a whole, how it's going to set us back. We need to be aware of things like that and not engage in those 5 things. It confuses people, number 4, who have low UX maturity, and then it prolongs their ability to advance. They will get there. It'll take them, I should say, longer to achieve higher levels of UX maturity because of these things that people do. So we got to be careful with that, folks. Number 5, detrimental impact. It generates and perpetuates false identities and it misrepresents growth. It causes people to think that the UX practitioner is one thing when they're actually something else. And then there are sets of expectations along with that that will be skewed, that will become dysfunctional. Number 6, it distracts people from the goals that we should have, especially when it comes to competition. When people choose to compete instead of supporting, the people in the midst who are trying to actually vault the team forward, now they have to defend themselves. Now they have to spend time trying to address things that happen because of the ambition that somebody was engaging in instead of trying to uplift the team. There are some people, all they want to do is uplift themselves. And when you're dealing with people, leaders in particular, or stakeholders who have lower levels of UX maturity, they will actually buy in to the misguided representations. And now the other people have to work because they may be thought of as less because of the presentation that someone else engaged in. So help everybody to be focused on the right goals. It's better for everybody if we do that. People are going to be blindsided. In particular, for example, when people choose to avoid telling people about some of the challenges and some of the political issues that may come up. If you act like those things are not going to happen, now somebody, as we talked about a few moments ago, they're going to be blindsided because you chose to have them to subscribe in what we call ostrich effect bias. They're going to put their head in the sand and pretend like something doesn't exist when it is going to hit them. And in some cases, it's going to hit them hard. And being blindsided, it hits people harder than when they thought of it as something that was a possibility. So we want to be careful with that. Number 8, and I sort of addressed this one already, but we'll go ahead and we'll mention it again. Setting false expectations for those who are observing. When someone engages in one of those 5 under the radar conflicts of interest, the expectation that stakeholders have, that practitioners have, that leadership has is going to be different. It's going to be off base. It's going to be incorrect. It's going to be misguided. It's going to paint false pictures. And then when people have those false expectations and they don't happen the way that they were expecting it, now you've got fallout that's going to trigger a lot of different emotions. It's going to trigger a lot of different goals or foster a lot of different goals. Not a good thing for everybody to experience. Number 9, it results in missed opportunities to vault the discipline forward. The more accurate of a picture we paint about the discipline, the more likely people are to do the right things. And then it helps people go to or achieve the aspects, the different levels of UX maturity that everybody really wants to achieve. And not only the UX maturity, but just the success that everybody wanted to experience as it comes to the different goals and the aspirations that we have with our different initiatives, team initiatives, by the way. And then lastly, attrition. Folks, when people have under the radar conflicts of interest and subscribe to them, it always causes a team to constrict. In other words, people are going to leave. There are some people, usually the more mature people on the team, they're only going to tolerate those things for so long. I have done it in my career. I know other people that have done it. I have talked to people about how to manage things, and they ended up doing the same thing. Nobody wants to be at the less UX mature organization. Nobody wants to be there. When people see things that are fostering continued engagement and trying to get people indirectly, having people subscribe to the lower UX maturity, practicing things that are related to the lower levels of UX maturity, coddling people who are operating with those conflicts of interest, people leave. People leave those companies. Attrition costs money. It's going to cause and foster lower levels of UX maturity. It's going to cause more of the same. The company is going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions, in attrition because of how the lower levels of UX maturity are being reinforced. And this also happens when you have leaders who have lower levels of UX maturity. It's very common in those environments. A lot of layoffs happen in these environments. Again, people just leaving. Then you end up hiring people who are also operating in conjunction with the under the radar conflicts of interest. So you get into this vicious cycle, folks, as we wrap up. We win when we respect the discipline. We win when we build others around us to do the right things at the right times. Folks, we win when we work together. When we do these things, and I say it all the time, everybody wins. The discipline wins, you win, the team wins, the stakeholders win, our customers win. UX maturity for the win. But we need to understand, under the radar conflicts of interest, they seem harmless. They are not. As we've demonstrated with the different definitions and the different examples in this episode, strive to be aware of under the radar conflicts of interest. Strive to help people overcome under the radar conflicts of interest. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. These are just things that happen. These are things that are going on in our places of employment, but these are things that can be managed. These are things that can be overcome. These are things that we can get the victory over as we operate in our own UX circles, in our own teams, in our own organizations today. And that's it for UX maturity and under the radar conflicts of interest. So I hope you got something out of this. I hope you're not threatened by this. We're just helping. Folks, we are just helping. But thank you again for taking the time. Hey, don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share the word with your UX peers, the people in your UX circles, and let's all help to drive the discipline forward. Until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, wishing everybody all the best. And until next week, happy UXing, everybody.